Hey there, jewelry friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. My name is Desiree, and I am your jewelry reselling bestie. This episode is part two of everything resellers need to know about real silver jewelry. And in part one, we covered quite a bit. And so in this part, we are going to cover, let me hop on over to my notes. We're going to talk about some tips for selling real silver jewelry. We're also going to talk about caring for and storing real silver jewelry. And then I want to share with you some things you want to avoid as it relates to sourcing and selling real silver jewelry. All right. So before we get into that, I always like to remind you to head on over to our website, jewelryresellerspodcast.com, because over there you can listen to past episodes. We've got quite a few. There's also a blog over there, and I do have a corresponding blog post to part one of the Everything Resellers Need to Know about real silver jewelry. So make sure you check that out too, because there's some visuals there that hopefully will make it easier for you to learn some of the information that I shared with you in part one and that I'll be sharing with you today in part two. On the website, you can also sign up for our newsletter, because when you do, you will get access to an instant download. And it is the 20 best-selling vintage jewelry brands that I think all resellers should know. You're going to get that for free, and it is literally the best-selling vintage jewelry brands. And that has come from my own experience, as well as my own research, and talking to other jewelry resellers who are out there in the trenches selling this stuff just like you and me. All right. So like I said, you can head on over to jewelryresellerspodcast.com and you can find all the goodies over there. I also want to share with you that I will be speaking at the Boss Reseller Remix, which happens in the spring of 2025, right here in Las Vegas. So if you'd like to meet me, hang out, talk about jewelry, I would love that. All right, it's happening, like I said, in March of 2025 in Las Vegas, and tickets go on sale December 1st. So let's see. Will this podcast, I think this podcast, yes, when part two publishes, the tickets will be on sale. So I will have a discount code for you in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube. And if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, I will have a discount code for you in the show notes. All right. So I'll have the link so you can check out the event. And if you would like to purchase a ticket, like I said, I will have a discount code for you so I can save you a little bit of money. So I hope to see you in Las Vegas, and it's going to be fun. This is going to be my second year attending the event. It's going to be my first year as a speaker, and I am beyond thrilled, and I can't wait. All right, so let's go ahead and get into today's topic. So, like I said, we're going to cover tips for selling real silver jewelry. All right, now maybe initially you guys already know how to do this, but for those of you that don't, or maybe you're just getting started, or maybe you just want to lean in and see, is there something something that I may be missing, or something I'm not doing, or something I need to know? That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to talk about right now. All right, so looking at my notes, we're going to cover the best tips for reselling real silver jewelry. Reselling real silver jewelry can be a profitable and rewarding business, but success requires knowledge, strategy, and attention to detail. Here are some expert tips to help you maximize your profits and grow your silver jewelry reselling business if you're only selling real silver jewelry. But a lot of us don't just focus on that. I do know some jewelry resellers who only sell like the finer, like gold, the luxury pieces. But I don't know any reseller who only sells silver. Usually it's a mix of all kinds of stuff. All right, so some of the best tips and best practices are: one, learning to identify real silver. Now, I went to this in depth in part one of the Everything Resellers Need to Know about real silver jewelry. Okay, so if you missed that, I will link it somewhere here. It will also be linked in the description and in the show notes. All right, because that is going to be crucial for you getting the amount of money that is fair and that you deserve when you are selling these real silver jewelry pieces. All right. So you want to understand the markings. We talked about that in part one. You also want to use a magnet. Remember, real silver is not magnetic. So if a piece sticks to a magnet, it is likely not genuine or real silver. All right. You also want to test for authenticity. And I talked about that in part one as well. You can use some of those acid tests and, but you got to be careful because that can damage the piece. All right. So, but there are some ways for you to figure out if you have authentic real silver. All right. Now, the other thing you want to do is to source strategically. All right. So when you are out looking for real silver, or maybe just looking for jewelry in general, you want to make sure that you are very careful and very strategic, even when it comes to sourcing your pieces. Now, I know it's getting more and more competitive with what we do nowadays. I know. But the thing is not everybody is knowledgeable, and that is how you can give yourself an edge, right? So do the homework. Set yourself up for success. Set yourself up to win. Okay, so pay attention to where you're sourcing. Now, thrift stores, estate sales, yard sales, garage sales, flea markets, auctions, online and off. All of these are places where you can find real silver jewelry. I have found real silver jewelry at all of these places. Sometimes people know what they have, sometimes they don't. But again, this is where our knowledge and our education comes into play. All right, so make sure that you are doing your due diligence, because a lot of it is really just taking the time to go out and look. You will find something. Now, I'm not saying you're going to find home runs every time you go out to source jewelry, but the more you do it, the more you're putting the odds in your favor, and statistically you will win just because you're going to be out there more and you're going to learn more every time you go out. All right, so source strategically, have a plan, and then have the knowledge to back up that plan. The other thing I want to talk about is cleaning and restoring pieces. Now, whether or not to do this is going to depend entirely upon you, your business model. Do you have the time to do this? Do you have the money that may be involved in buying the things needed to clean and restore and repair certain jewelry pieces? I did a whole podcast episode on whether or not you should do this. Again, I think it's going to come down to personal preference and what your business model is. All right. So you got to think about that. Now, that could be a whole business in and of itself: cleaning, restoring, and repairing jewelry. I know that there are some resellers who have it as like an add on service. Like if somebody buys something from them, they'll pay a few bucks extra to have the person clean it or replace a clasp or whatever the case may be. So you can do that. You can have kind of a hybrid of something like this or maybe something else, but it is something to consider. And it is another opportunity to make some more money. All right, so let's talk about cleaning and restoring just in general for some of us who don't want to take that next step. You want to polish, but again, it depends on the piece and how you're selling it and what your buyer wants. Not every buyer wants their silver to be polished. A lot of buyers want their silver to have tarnish on it, either because they like the way it looks or because they want to polish it themselves. Because, that's the thing I love about us jewelry people. We can be very, very picky about what we want and what we don't want. All right. I come from the camp where I like my jewelry to look flawless. I like it to be as pristine and as beautiful and as shiny as it can be. There's other people who don't like that. They prefer the more rough, rugged look, the tarnish. Some people like flaws depending on what it is, right? They say it gives it character or personality. So, like I said, us jewelry people, we know what we want and what we don't want. So remember to take all of that into consideration before you decide whether or not to polish or not to polish. All right. Also, repairing simple damages. I talked about that. This is going to be an investment of time and money. I don't know if all of us want to do that, although there may be a few of us out there that do. And I'm telling you, just you're going to stand out if you do decide to do that, because there's not a lot of us doing it. I know I don't do it. A lot of my jewelry reseller friends, none of them do repairs or restoration. They just don't. Right? Maybe because we're too busy, maybe we don't want to learn how, whatever the case may be. If you decide to do that, like I said, you're going to be an outlier, because there's not a lot of us who choose to do that. All right. And you want to avoid over cleaning vintage or antique pieces. And I'm going to go one step further and say, don't even bother cleaning it, because sometimes, you have the best intentions and you want to clean something to make it look better, but you can end up damaging the piece. All right. Like I said, some people want that old look. They want it to be as preserved as it can be in its original state. So we want to be very, very careful with that. All right, some other tips for selling real silver jewelry. Market trends, pay attention to that. Now, I think silver has always been trendy with young, with older, men and women. It's it like I don't know anybody who has not enjoyed silver jewelry. Now, some people have a preference, gold or silver, because some people like the way silver looks on them. Some people like the way gold looks on them. There's that. But in general, silver has always been popular and always in demand to some degree, at least for as long as I've been reselling jewelry. And so sometimes different styles and maybe different designs could be trending, but silver in general is always very popular. All right, so you want to understand your buyer preferences. Minimalist designs, boho styles, and vintage pieces often sell very well. We also want to pay attention to seasonality. Jewelry sales peak during certain holiday seasons like Valentine's Day, Christmas, Mother's Day, graduation, and then of course birthdays, anniversaries, and things like that. Now, the other thing, which I think this is something that you will learn as you grow, are keywords, being very strategic with popular keywords. That way, people can find the jewelry piece. When they're searching, you want to really figure out what are people searching for when it comes to this. What are people typing in, whether it's on Google, eBay, wherever. And again, that'll take you time to learn, because I'm still learning, right? And I've been doing this a while, but I still don't always get my keywords right. you know, um, I get better, but I'm not going to say I have it down perfect. You also want to learn how to optimize your listings, again, using words like sterling silver, 925. And I talked about this in the listings. I can't remember the title, but I did a whole episode on how to write really good jewelry listings. Oh, I think it was irresistible jewelry listings that sell, something like that. I will link it here in case you're interested or in case you haven't seen it. So you want to make sure you're optimizing your jewelry listings. You want to price strategically and competitively. Again, this is going to require you to do some research, running some comps on items of a similar style and value as it relates to your real silver jewelry pieces. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are doing all of this research, before you actually decide on a price for your real silver jewelry. Now, sometimes you can focus on niche markets like vintage and antique, certain designers, like Tiffany and Co. That's very popular. There's a lot of people who just love, Tiffany and Co. real silver jewelry pieces. But be very careful, because that is also a very highly faked and counterfeited brand. So be careful. All right. Um, so yeah, you can kind of focus on niche markets as well when it comes to real silver jewelry. You're never locked into anything, and you can try all of these approaches and see what works for you and what doesn't. We also want to build customer trust. I think this goes without saying. None of us are intentionally trying to scam anybody or be dishonest or not be transparent. All right. But your knowledge and your education about real silver jewelry will help people trust you as a seller, because they're going to feel confident buying from you because you know and understand what it is they're looking for, right? And you understand the differences and all the intricate details of real silver jewelry. All right. So continue to build and grow your knowledge, because it's only going to help you and it's only going to help build that customer trust. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is to leverage multiple sales channels. You guys know that I am a huge fan of listing or selling your jewelry on multiple platforms. I think for jewelry, it is crucial for us. Not everybody may agree with me, but for me, I have noticed that sometimes one platform will be better for me than another. But I mean, I don't list on a lot, but I usually list on about 3 platforms. And then I'm very, very careful to make sure I remove it, when it sells on one, to remove it on off the other two. All right. But that is one way that you can increase your chances of making a sale. All right. You also want to educate yourself. We talked about that. And I think you're taking that step by listening or watching to this podcast episode. What else? What else as it relates to selling real silver jewelry? Now, this is something that I have been finding a lot of success with lately, and that is upselling and bundling jewelry pieces. I have just sold a few jewelry bundles of stuff that, I mean, it wasn't silver, but it was just stuff that I had for a while. And so I lotted it up and I sold it as a big jewelry lot. Now, you may want to consider doing this with silver if it makes sense for your business model, because there is a lot of money to be made selling that way. I know a lot of us sell on a piece by piece by piece basis, but you may want to consider making some lots or making some bundles, especially when it concerns your real silver jewelry. And I know a lot of people like to buy sets, like they like to buy the ring, the necklace, the earrings, the bracelet, and it doesn't have to all, match exactly, but you might want to try it and see if your buyers, are interested in sets like that, curated sets that you put together, pieces that you think look good or that they kind of match, maybe they have a similar style or design. All right. And then the other thing I want to remind you of as it relates to selling real silver jewelry is to always test your pricing, right? Like sometimes you can ask a little bit more or a little bit less and you'll make a sale, because there's a lot of silver jewelry listings on eBay, Lord knows. But you want to test out your prices, right? Because you never know what's going to draw somebody in. And sometimes it's just that little tweak that will enable you to make the sale. Okay, so these are the tips I have for you as it relates to selling real silver jewelry. Now let's talk about how to care and store real silver jewelry, because this is something else that I think a lot of us get nervous about because we don't want to ruin anything. And then we also want to make sure we tell our customers, how to care for pieces when they buy, because they will ask you. They'll say, "Oh, how do I protect this?" Or "How do I keep it looking shiny?" Or "How do I store it?" Your buyers will ask you that. All right. Now, I have done an episode about whether or not to clean jewelry before selling it. And I will link that too if you're interested or if you haven't seen it. But so some of the stuff I'm talking about, I already covered in that video. But in case you haven't seen that video or you haven't listened to that episode, we're going to talk about it here. So, proper care and storage of real silver jewelry can maintain its beauty, prevent tarnishing, and extend its lifespan. Here are some tips on how to care for and store your real silver jewelry. All right, now let's talk about why silver needs special care. Silver, particularly sterling silver, is prone to tarnishing due to a reaction with sulfur and moisture in the air. While tarnish doesn't damage the silver, it affects its appearance and can deter buyers if you're reselling. Now, remember, some people like the tarnish, some people don't. All right, so when it comes to cleaning, I only use a polishing cloth. That's how I clean all of my silver. I don't get it wet. If it gets wet, like, you know, maybe if I'm sweating or something when I'm wearing it, that's really the only kind of water or anything that gets on my pieces. I just use a silver polishing cloth, and that has worked wonders for me. But you don't have to do that. You can also use soap and water, mild dish soap. You can use silver cleaner, if you have one that you trust. Or you can do a DIY cleaning solution. And I have that in that other episode. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the blog post, because I think if I just ramble off this recipe here, it won't be as helpful. So I will put that in the blog post if you are interested in seeing the details. It's the aluminum foil, baking soda, and salt cleaning DIY solution. So like I said, I will have that in the corresponding blog post for you. You want to avoid abrasive materials. Be careful with toothpaste and using brushes and stuff, because some of those brushes are really harsh, and some of the toothpaste has like a graininess to it. So you want to be very careful. All right. And they said that to protect against tarnish, you should wear your jewelry regularly. And they said the natural oils in your skin can prevent tarnishing, which is interesting because I didn't know that. Like, I have a lot of pieces, so I don't wear them all like every day on rotation. But I notice they still tarnish just when I have them sitting like on top of my dresser. Like, maybe I just don't wear them enough. But I do have a lot. So, if it gets a little tarnished, I just take that polishing cloth and it's fine. All right. So let's talk about how to store real silver jewelry. They have anti-tarnish little bags, or they have these little strips. I've seen them. And so you can put your silver jewelry in there with one of those little strips, and it will prevent it from tarnishing. You also want to store the jewelry piece individually, the silver rather. You don't want to store it with a bunch of other stuff, just to protect it and to prevent it from getting scratched or tangled or damaged or anything like that. It says avoid storing multiple pieces in one box without separators. Okay, so you want to make sure that I'm not really good at this. I just have a tray on my dresser and I just put all of my jewelry on it. But I can see it because I do it that way because I want to see it. So I know, oh, I want to wear this today. Right. And so some of it's touching, maybe some of it, isn't as protected as it could be. But hey, it works for me. It works for me. All right. You want to store individually. You want to keep away from moisture and humidity. All right. So depending on where you are, I live in Las Vegas, so we don't really have a humidity problem. But depending on where you are, you want to be careful with that. You want to prevent direct sunlight because that can accelerate tarnishing. So don't store it in a window or anything like that. You also want to rotate your collection, and this is what I do. If you're reselling or wearing the jewelry, rotate the pieces to prevent some from sitting unused for long periods, which can lead to tarnish buildup. Now, I know if we have silver jewelry in our inventory, we're not really going to be rotating that. It's just going to sit there until it sells. But if you wanted to, you can wear the pieces if that makes sense for you. Now, I'm going to admit, there have been some times that I have worn jewelry pieces that I have listed for sale just because it worked with my outfit or I liked it. There's nothing to say that it's against the rules and that you can't do it. You just have to be very careful that you don't lose the piece or damage it or anything like that. All right. So that's what I got as it relates to care. Like I said, I have a whole video on that too. So, or another episode on that too. So like I said, I'll link that if you want if you want me to go even more in depth. All right. So here's some things we want to avoid when reselling real silver jewelry. Selling Number one, selling without verifying the authenticity. All right. Do not guess when it comes to your real silver jewelry. Know if it's, sterling. Know if it's fine. Know if it's silver plated or whatever. All right. Do not guess, because that is the worst thing you can do as it relates to being a jewelry reseller, is not knowing what you have or making a claim that it's something that you have no knowledge of it being authentic or not. All right. We just don't want to make that mistake. And I think that goes without saying. But, I just want to make sure that none of us are doing that. Okay. So do not sell without verifying the authenticity or the purity of the piece. All right. Number two is ignoring tarnish and wear. Now, again, this is going to be a case by case, customer by customer, buyer by buyer basis, because remember, some people love it, some people don't. All right. My thing is we just have to disclose that, oh, this piece may have some tarnish, and then we have to accurately show that in the corresponding photos. All right. Nobody should guess, and nobody should be surprised when they get their jewelry piece that it's all tarnished. Like, they need to know that they're buying a tarnished piece. All right. Again, make sure we accurately describe that in the listing, and the photos accurately show that as well. All right. Another thing we want to avoid is not doing market research. Again, this is where your pricing is going to come into play here. What are similar pieces selling for? Are we asking too much? Are we asking too little? Or are we right where we need to be as it relates to the pricing of our real silver jewelry? Number four, misrepresenting the items. Again, I talked about that. We want to be totally accurate and as detailed as possible with everything as it relates to the real silver jewelry. If there's tarnish, if there's damage, if there's a flaw, I don't know, right? Whatever it is, we want to make sure that we are disclosing accurately what what the piece is. Now, the other thing we want to avoid is neglecting high quality photos. I talked about this. We want to make sure that our photos are accurate. Like I said, nobody wants any bad surprises. Okay. And I think over time, you just get better and better with taking your photos. You also want to avoid failing to optimize your listings. Okay. Again, this is using detailed descriptions, making sure we have the correct keywords, and that we are describing the piece as best as we can, as honest as we can. Now, another thing you want to avoid is ignoring silver market trends. All right. So, if you are going to be selling a lot of real silver jewelry, you want to pay attention to, the price that silver is selling at, right? You want to pay attention to what the demands are. You want to pay attention to, all of these things, the time of year. Um, what's in demand, what's popular. Now, again, you don't have to be like a hound about this, but it's just something that you want to keep in the back of your mind as you are pricing your jewelry pieces, your real silver jewelry pieces. All right. The other things you want to avoid are selling without proper packaging. I don't think any of us do that, although I bought some jewelry that has not been properly packaged, and it was very disappointing. But you want to make sure that you protect the jewelry piece. That's really all you want to focus on. How can I protect this piece to the best of my ability so it gets to the customer in the condition that I send it in? All right. If you have to use a box, if you have to use bubble wrap, whatever the case may be. All right. Just do your best to protect the piece so it doesn't get damaged, during transit. Okay. I think that might be it. Oh, the last thing that you want to avoid is not continuing your education. All right. We're always learning. We're always trying to do better as it relates to jewelry reselling. We always want to do the best that we can. All right. And none of us knows everything. I know I don't. And, the more I research, like I said, the more I realize how much I don't know. So you can never have too much knowledge as it relates to real silver jewelry or just jewelry in general, right? There's just so much to learn. And the more you learn, like I said, the more of an edge you are going to have when you're outsourcing and then when you are out selling or when you are selling online, wherever. Okay, so that is all I have for you as it relates to part two of everything resellers need to know about real silver jewelry. I think a lot of this stuff probably is a refresher for a lot of us. So maybe you guys already knew this stuff. Maybe some of it was new, but I hope that it gave you a really solid foundational knowledge about real silver jewelry. And I hope it's giving you the confidence to source real silver jewelry pieces and sell them, right? Because, like I said, there is so much of it out there, and there are people who are specifically looking for real silver jewelry. All right, so that's all I got for you. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed. And if there is anything I may have missed or maybe something that I got wrong, please don't hesitate to reach out to me because I will make the correction and do whatever needs to be done because I want to make sure that I am giving you the most accurate, up to date information that I possibly can. And like I said, I don't know everything there is to know about real silver jewelry. I'm like you, out here learning and just trying to share what I learned. So hopefully it will help you. All right. So if you'd like to reach out to me, you can do that on the website. There is a contact page there. All you got to do is head on over to jewelryresellerspodcast.com. And yeah, that's going to be it. So I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, sourcing time, selling or listing time, whatever it is that you're doing. I appreciate you spending this time with me, and I will check in with you again really soon.